Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on the most disturbing vaults in Fallout. Vault 11. Vault 11 is a social experiment. That's it. No chemicals, no monsters, no biological weapons. Just a question: what will people do when an authority figure tells them someone has to die? The answer, it turns out, is vote on it. When the door closed, the vault's computer announced that one resident must be sacrificed each year or life support would be permanently shut down. The residents, faced with this ultimatum, immediately held a democratic election. The first overseer, the only person who knew the experiment's true nature, was unanimously chosen. He cried on the way down to the sacrificial chamber. Nobody helped him. From there, elections became something considerably less democratic. Factions formed. Propaganda appeared on the walls. A woman named Catherine Stone stalked and murdered members of a rival bloc to protect her husband from nomination. She was caught, made overseer, and then changed the election process to a random number generator so nobody could do to her what she had done to everyone else. Reasonable. This continued for decades. By the end, 5 people were left. They finally refused to nominate anyone. The computer congratulated them. The door opened. All 5 committed suicide. 1 walked out. Next up is Vault 22. Vault 22 is visually distinct from every other vault on this list. Where most vaults are concrete and rust and existential dread, Vault 22 is green, lush, almost inviting. There are plants growing out of the entrance. Signs posted outside read, "Stay out, the plants kill," which is either a warning or the most accurate piece of marketing in the Mojave. The vault was staffed with botanists and agricultural scientists tasked with solving world hunger. Genuinely noble work. They grew crops, developed pest-resistant strains, and experimented with new methods of food production for nearly 2 decades. Then a research facility called Big Mountain donated them a fungus. Beauveria moricana is an entomopathogenic fungus originally developed for pest control. When spores contact a host, the fungus colonizes the body, causes organ failure, kills the host, and then reanimates the corpse to spread more spores. Big Mountain had already watched it kill a human test subject, whose body subsequently vanished before they could examine it. They sent it to the vault anyway and said nothing. The body, incidentally, is still at Big Mountain. The first confirmed infection in Vault 22 was Dr. Harrison Peters. He was sealed in the clinic. He sat up. Scientists attempted to flood the lower levels with ignited gas to eradicate the carriers. This woke every dormant spore carrier simultaneously. The resulting killing frenzy reduced the population to approximately 118 survivors, who escaped to Zion Canyon and left the vault sealed behind them. The research is still in there. So are the spore carriers. So, presumably, is Dr. Peters. Moving on to something considerably more deliberate. Vault 75. Vault 75 is located beneath Malden Middle School, which tells you everything you need to know about Vault Tech's sense of humor. The vault was marketed as a child safety initiative, subsidized enrollment for families with children under 15, special discounts for qualifying households. Vault Tech cares about the future, and the future is children, and children deserve protection. When the bombs fell, families arrived at the school and descended into the vault together. At the bottom, children under 17 were separated from their parents for orientation. Parents were taken to a holding area. The parents were executed. Any child who refused to be separated was executed with them. The remaining children were the experiment. The United States military wanted battle-ready super soldiers, and Vault 75 was the manufacturing facility. Children were subjected to combat training, simulated warfare, strict dietary regimens, hormonal treatments, genetic modification, and selective breeding programs. Children who performed at excellent or superior levels were harvested for genetic material to produce the next generation of subjects via in vitro fertilization. Children who did not perform at that level were removed from the population. If a child survived every phase of this program and reached 18, they were congratulated, labeled a graduate, and expelled into the wasteland. Eventually, the program worked too well. The children it produced were physically superior to the scientists running it. 2 residents, James S. and Rohat L., organized an insurrection. The scientists were executed by the subjects they created. Children's toys are still scattered across every room of the vault. The gunners occupy it now. Next up is Vault 87. Vault 87 started as a fairly standard research installation. Plasma containment fields. AIDS Garden of Eden creation. Kit development, the kind of vault where scientists wear clean coats and write papers. Then the Great War escalated. Biological weapons became a strategic priority, and someone at Vault Tech decided the residents of Vault 87 would make excellent test subjects for the forced evolutionary virus. The overseer knew, the residents did not. FEV exposure produced consistent results. Subjects increased dramatically in size, strength, and resistance to radiation. It also obliterated higher cognition and replaced it with uncontrollable aggression. The scientists documented this and continued. The subjects became larger, more aggressive. Still, they continued. 1 year after the bombs fell, a nuclear warhead struck directly on top of the vault's entrance, sealing everyone inside permanently. Shortly after that, the subjects broke out of containment. Every scientist and security officer in Vault 87 was killed. The resulting creatures, now classified as super mutants, spread across the capital wasteland with a singular biological problem. FEV renders subjects completely sterile. They cannot reproduce, so they do the next best thing, which is abduct humans, drag them back to Vault 87, and submerge them in FEV vats to create more of themselves. They have been doing this for 200 years. By 2277, Vault 87 is still fully operational and run entirely by super mutants. It is also one of the most heavily irradiated locations in the entire Capital Wasteland. Approaching the entrance without power armor rated for extreme radiation exposure is a decision you make exactly once. Every super mutant you encounter in Fallout 3's Capital Wasteland traces back to one experiment that the official documentation describes as a failure. Moving on to psychological horror, Vault 92. Vault 92 was a cultural preservation vault. 245 of America's finest musicians selected to safeguard the nation's musical legacy in a fully equipped facility with recording studios, instruments, and professional sound equipment. An inspired idea, the kind of vault you would actually want to live in. The overseer, Richard Rubin, banned headphones from the Vault store on day one. This was the only warning anyone received. Rubin was running Vault-Tech's White Noise Mine Suggestion Combat Experimentation Program, codenamed WN-MSCE, using the Vault's speaker infrastructure to broadcast low-frequency white noise laced with combat suggestions into the population at all times. Professor John Malleus, the scientist running the legitimate music research, had no idea any of this was happening. He thought it was his experiment. It was not his experiment. Initial results were extraordinary. 100% effectiveness, less than 1% margin of error. Rubin's personal notes describe his vision of deploying an army of soldiers incapable of disobeying a direct order from high command. He was extremely pleased with himself. Then, subject V920717, a musician with no documented history of violence or mental instability, murdered 3 other residents in a blind rage. Security required 23 shots to bring him down. More followed. Subjects who had responded most readily to the white noise implantation began tearing victims apart with their bare hands. Professor Malleus sent increasingly desperate messages to the overseer, begging him to stop. The overseer did not respond. Within a short period, 30% of the vault population was clinically insane, and 35% were dead. The vault door was eventually opened from the inside. Some residents escaped. The vault is still there. Mirelurks have moved in. A noise flush function on the security terminals still drives them back, which raises questions nobody has time to answer. Next up is Vault 95. Vault 95 was a rehabilitation vault. 72 residents, all recovering addicts, admitted on the condition that participation in the rehabilitation program was mandatory for continued residency. No chems anywhere in the facility. The overseer was elected annually from the resident population to ensure genuine investment in the process. A detox machine was installed in the facility's wing. Everything was designed to give these people a real chance. It worked. For 5 years, it genuinely worked. Meeting notes from 2082 document residents debating whether to continue the program, now that most of them felt recovered. The consensus was yes. They had built something. Friendships, routines, a surrogate family assembled from people who had nothing in common except the worst years of their lives. One resident named J. Scott wrote about how the vault had given him something he had never had before. What he did not know, what none of them knew, was that a Vault-Tech agent named R. Gutierrez had been living among them the entire time. Washa not even the overseer knew. Gutierrez had a rehearsed backstory, a documented addiction history, and one standing order. On the 5-year anniversary, unlock a hidden storage compartment packed with chems, alcohol, and addictive stimulants. Then document what happened. Gutierrez wrote one entry. The program had been a success. Everyone had recovered. Then he opened the compartment. That was his last entry. The community fractured within hours. Residents retreated to private quarters with personal stashes. When the stashes ran out, they killed each other for more. Skeletons are found throughout the vault today. Bony hands still wrapped around jet canisters. Some are at each other's throats. Gutierrez did not survive long enough to record a single observation. The second experiment and the vault's population ended at roughly the same time. The detox machine, incidentally, was there to make the fall harder. Moving on to something considerably less calculated. Vault 106. Vault 106 housed 107 occupants. 95 of them were the experiment. The remaining 12 were Vault-Tech researchers who believed they were the scientists. They were also the experiment. Nobody told them that. 10 days after the door closed, at precisely 15:30 hours, psychoactive substances were pumped directly into the vault's air circulation system. Residents were not informed. The effects varied considerably. Some became catatonic, some became euphoric. Others became violently aggressive, hallucinatory, and functionally impossible to reason with. The security team was deployed to handle the situation. The security team was killed. The researchers documented the results for as long as they were able, which was not very long. Terminal entries throughout the vault traced the descent in real time, moving from confused maintenance tickets about unusual resident behavior to urgent security reports to a single entry from the overseer referencing the word control with no further context. He appears to have died at his desk. Whatever he wanted to control, he did not get it. A family of 3, 2 adults and 1 child, is found dead in their quarters. They had barricaded themselves inside and waited for the insane survivors to leave. The insane survivors never left. Near a collapsed cave wall in the lower levels, a pile of skeletons surrounds a mini-nuke. It appears several residents attempted to blast their way out through solid rock. The rock did not move. They are still there. Here is the notable part. The vault has never been cleared. It is still active in 2277. The psychoactive compound Vault-Tec, introduced into that ventilation system, has persisted for over 200 years. Entering the vault today causes hallucinations. The insane survivors are still roaming the corridors. They are still attacking anyone they encounter. Whatever was in that air supply, it works. Moving on to something significantly less subtle. Vault 108. Vault 108 housed 475 residents and was stocked with triple the standard armory allocation. The overseer, Brody Jones, had been diagnosed with terminal cancer before the vault sealed and was given roughly 40 months to live. The power grid was engineered to fail within 20 years, despite the vault's 38-year operational window. Vault-Tec's contribution to this experiment was to remove every stabilizing force from the equation and hand everyone a weapon. The resulting armed conflict was, in hindsight, predictable. After the overseer's death, the population fought over leadership until the population was no longer large enough to sustain a meaningful conflict. The survivors regrouped and identified their primary problem. There were not enough of them left to continue. They needed to expand the population. They decided to clone someone. The person they selected was a man named Gary. Each successive Gary clone displayed increasing hostility toward anyone who did not look like Gary, sound like Gary, or respond to the name Gary. The researchers noted this pattern from the early iterations and continued cloning. By Gary 53, the behavioral profile was consistent and well documented, and the lab was running out of space. Some Garys were removed and killed to make room for more Garys. One more was produced regardless. Gary 54 attacked and killed Dr. Peterson during a routine examination. This triggered a full revolt. By 2277, every original resident of Vault 108 and every descendant is dead. The vault is populated exclusively by Gary clones who have lost all language except one word. They communicate in complete sentences when they believe they are unobserved. The moment they detect you, they revert. Vault-Tec did not design the Gary experiment. The surviving residents did that themselves. Vault-Tec simply removed the power, killed the overseer with cancer, and watched. The last word anyone hears in Vault 108 is Gary. From 475 people replaced by one man, to 200 years of frozen sleep. A Vault 111. Vault 111 was designed to operate for 180 days. It ran for 210 years. This is either a tremendous engineering success or a catastrophic failure of planning, depending on whether you were one of the researchers who was only supposed to be there for 180 days. The vault was marketed to residents of Sanctuary Hills and Concord as a standard bomb shelter. When they entered and were directed into what staff described as decontamination pods, nobody mentioned the pods were cryogenic stasis chambers. Nobody mentioned the residents would be frozen indefinitely as the actual experiment. The staff knew, the residents did not. The staff were also, as it turned out, not adequately prepared for what came next. The all-clear signal never came. Supplies ran out faster than projected. Terminal entries document the mood shifting from professional detachment to quiet concern to open panic across a matter of months. The security team eventually mutinied against the overseer and attempted to force the vault door open. A firefight broke out. Most of the staff were killed or fled. The residents remained frozen throughout all of this, unable to move or intervene or even know it was happening. At some point after the mutiny, Institute agents accessed the vault. They opened one pod, shot the occupant in front of their frozen and fully conscious spouse, and left with the child. The remaining cryopods began malfunctioning one by one due to lack of maintenance. Residents suffocated to death inside them, including children, all but one. That one survivor wakes up in 2028. Every person they knew is dead. Their neighborhood is rubble. Their spouse was murdered in front of them while they stood frozen and silent, and completely unable to do anything about it. Their child, taken as an infant, has spent 60 years becoming the director of the organization that ordered the murder. The vault was designed to run for 180 days. Being frozen was the kindest thing that happened to anyone inside it. Next is Vault 112. Vault 112. Dr. Stanislaus Braun was the head of Vault-Tec's Future Tech division. He invented the Garden of Eden Creation Kit, the terraforming device that allowed post-war communities across the wasteland to rebuild civilization from nothing. He is one of the most consequential scientists in the entire Fallout universe. He is also the reason Vault 112 exists, which is worth keeping in mind. Vault 112 housed 85 residents in virtual reality pods, connected to a simulation Braun controlled with complete administrative authority. He could alter memories, rewrite identities, manufacture deaths, and reset everything whenever he felt like it. Residents inside the simulation had no knowledge they were vault dwellers. They believed they were living real lives. When Braun killed them, they experienced it as real. When he reset the simulation, they forgot it happened. Then he did it again. Terminal entries document his creative process. A Swiss ski chalet ran for 23 years before he grew bored. He notes a resident slipping on icy stairs and impaling herself on a wrought iron fence as spectacular, and considers it almost enough to make him reconsider a change of scenery. Not quite, though. By the events of Fallout 3, the active simulation is Tranquility Lane, a 1950s American suburb modeled after his German childhood hometown. He finds it comforting. He has been running it for decades. Braun himself is in a pod. He does not leave. This is his life. He has been in that pod for over 200 years, running the same neighborhood through endless cycles of manufactured tragedy, because he finds suburban American domestic horror particularly satisfying. When the lone wanderer accesses the simulation's terminal and activates a Chinese invasion failsafe program, Chinese soldiers deploy and kill every remaining resident simultaneously. Braun loses control. He lets the wanderer leave. Every pod in the vault flatlines at once. If you choose not to do that, the residents remain exactly where they are, indefinitely, for as long as the power holds. The man who gave the wasteland the tools to rebuild spent 2 centuries using 85 people as characters in a personal entertainment system. He designed the vault specifically for this purpose and was assigned 85 residents to populate it with. In conclusion, Vault-Tech's experiments are a testament to human ingenuity, and you should absolutely visit them. If you enjoyed this PowerPoint presentation, I made others, and you should check them out. Peace on planet Earth.